Visualize this. You're sitting in a trendy coffee shop in downtown Seattle, finally meeting that colleague who seemed so supportive during your recent project presentation. They had offered encouragement, shared your excitement about the promotion opportunity, and even suggested grabbing coffee to celebrate your hard work. But as you sit across from them now, something feels different. Their smile seems forced, their compliments feel hollow, and you notice they keep steering the conversation toward your upcoming interview details, information that could benefit their own career ambitions. This unsettling feeling in your gut? That's your inner wisdom trying to protect you from something the ancient Stoics understood deeply. Not everyone who appears virtuous actually possesses virtue. Some individuals walk among us wearing masks of kindness while harboring intentions that can devastate our peace, relationships, and well-being. Today, we're diving into one of the most crucial skills you can develop as a modern person navigating the complexities of urban life, recognizing the signs of truly harmful individuals. Whether you're climbing the corporate ladder in Manhattan, building relationships in Los Angeles, or creating community in Chicago, understanding these warning signs can literally change your life. The Stoic philosophers, particularly Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, faced similar challenges in their time. They encountered flatterers in the Roman court, manipulators in the marketplace, and controllers in their personal circles. Their wisdom, tested over centuries, provides us with a powerful framework for protection. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, how much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself. The Stoics believed that our greatest strength lies not in controlling others, which is impossible, but in developing our perception, maintaining our virtue, and protecting our inner tranquility. They understood that evil often disguises itself as good, that manipulation frequently wears the mask of care, and that the most dangerous people are often those who seem the most charming. In our hyper-connected world of social media facades, workplace politics, and complex relationships, this ancient wisdom becomes even more relevant. We're constantly bombarded with people presenting carefully curated versions of themselves, making it harder than ever to distinguish between genuine character and sophisticated deception. Throughout this exploration, we'll examine 5 unmistakable signs that someone in your life may be causing more harm than good. But this isn't just about identification, it's about empowerment. By the end of our journey together, you'll possess practical tools rooted in Stoic philosophy to protect your mental health, maintain your integrity, and build genuinely supportive relationships. The Stoics taught that knowledge without application is worthless. So we'll not only explore these warning signs but also provide you with concrete strategies for setting boundaries, maintaining your peace, and responding with wisdom rather than emotion when faced with toxic behavior. Remember, recognizing these patterns isn't about becoming cynical or suspicious of everyone around you. It's about developing the discernment that Epictetus called the beginning of philosophy, the ability to see things as they truly are, not as they appear to be. 1. The mask of false virtue, recognizing superficial charm. The first and perhaps most dangerous sign you're dealing with a harmful person is their ability to present themselves as absolutely captivating. These individuals possess an almost magnetic quality that draws people in, making everyone around them feel special, valued, and understood. But as the Stoics warned us centuries ago, appearances can be profoundly deceiving, and those who seem too good to be true often are. Consider the experience of Sarah, a sharp marketing consultant, who found herself in just such a scenario. Sarah thought she'd struck gold when she met David at a Manhattan networking event. He was the kind of person who commanded attention the moment he walked into the room. Impeccably dressed, confident smile, and an uncanny ability to make everyone feel like the most important person in the conversation. Within minutes of meeting him, Sarah felt like she'd found not just a potential business partner, but someone who truly understood her vision for expanding her marketing consultancy. David had all the right responses. When Sarah mentioned her struggles with work-life balance, he nodded sympathetically and shared what seemed like a vulnerable story about his own challenges. When she talked about her innovative approach to digital marketing, his eyes lit up with genuine interest, or so it seemed. He asked thoughtful questions, remembered details from their conversation, and by the end of the evening, Sarah felt energized and validated in a way she hadn't experienced in months. This scenario plays out countless times across America's major cities. In Chicago's business districts, Los Angeles entertainment circles, and Boston's academic communities, charismatic individuals use their natural magnetism not to build genuine connections, but to manipulate and control others for their own benefit. The ancient Stoics understood this phenomenon intimately and developed powerful tools to see through such deception. Marcus Aurelius, writing in his Meditations, warned us, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself." This wasn't about becoming self-absorbed, but rather about developing the discipline to observe behavior patterns rather than being swept away by surface-level charm. The emperor understood that in the political landscape of Rome, as in our modern professional environments, the most dangerous people often presented themselves as the most appealing. The Stoic concept of apatheia, often misunderstood as emotional numbness, actually refers to a state of emotional equilibrium that allows us to perceive situations clearly without being clouded by immediate emotional reactions. When someone is exceptionally charming, our natural response is to feel flattered, excited, and drawn to them. But apatheia teaches us to maintain enough emotional distance to observe their behavior objectively. What happened to Sarah over the following weeks reveals the pattern perfectly. David's true nature began showing itself in subtle ways. During their coffee meetings, she noticed he had a habit of interrupting her mid-sentence, redirecting conversations back to his own experiences and achievements. When she shared exciting news about landing a major client, his congratulations felt hollow, quickly followed by a story about his own recent success that somehow overshadowed hers. Most tellingly, when Sarah tried to discuss concerns about a mutual business contact, David dismissed her intuition with a patronizing smile, saying, "You're probably just overthinking it." Epictetus, who understood manipulation intimately from his years as a slave, taught his students to make it your business to know yourself, which is the most difficult lesson in the world. Part of knowing ourselves involves recognizing when our judgment is being clouded by someone else's charm offensive. He emphasized that we should evaluate people not by their words or initial impressions, but by their consistent actions over time. The superficially charming person reveals their true nature through several consistent patterns. They need to be the center of attention in group settings, often dominating conversations and steering discussions back to themselves. They show little genuine interest in others' experiences unless those experiences can somehow benefit them. They struggle with criticism or disagreement, often becoming defensive or dismissive when their opinions are challenged. In professional settings, these individuals might be the colleague who takes credit for team successes while distancing themselves from failures. They're skilled at impressing supervisors while undermining peers. In personal relationships, they might be the friend who always needs to one-up your stories or the romantic partner who showers you with attention during the pursuit phase but becomes self-centered once they've secured your commitment. Seneca, writing to his friend Lucilius, observed, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." This wisdom applies perfectly to recognizing superficial charm. The end of being fooled by surface-level charisma marks the beginning of developing genuine discernment. Seneca understood that wisdom comes through experience, including the sometimes painful experience of recognizing when we've been deceived. The key to protecting yourself lies in developing what the Stoics called prosoche, continuous attention to the present moment and careful observation of what's actually happening rather than what appears to be happening. This means paying attention to how someone treats service workers, how they respond when things don't go their way, and whether their actions align with their words over time. When dealing with superficially charming individuals, resist the urge to make quick judgments based on first impressions. Instead, give yourself time to observe their behavior across different situations and contexts. Notice whether they show genuine interest in your well-being or if their attention feels transactional. Pay attention to how they handle conflict, disappointment, or situations where they're not the center of attention. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "Be like the rocky headland on which the waves constantly break. It stands firm, and round it the seething waters are laid to rest." When faced with someone whose charm feels overwhelming or too good to be true, be like that headland. Remain steady in your observations, unmoved by the emotional waves they're trying to create. The goal isn't to become cynical or suspicious of everyone you meet. Genuine charm and charisma exist and can be wonderful qualities in the right people. The difference lies in consistency, authenticity, and whether the person's charm serves to build others up or primarily to elevate themselves. True charisma inspires and empowers others, while superficial charm manipulates and controls. By developing this Stoic discernment, you protect not only yourself but also your ability to recognize and appreciate genuine virtue when you encounter it. As Epictetus taught, wealth consists in not having great possessions, but in having few wants. Similarly, relational wealth consists not in having many admirers, but in having few genuine, virtuous connections. 2. The absence of human connection, understanding empathy deficits. The second unmistakable sign of a truly harmful person is their complete inability to connect with the emotional experiences of others. Empathy, the capacity to understand and share in another person's feelings, forms the foundation of all meaningful human relationships. Yet some individuals move through life as if this fundamental human quality simply doesn't exist within them, leaving a trail of emotional devastation in their wake. Marcus Chen had been working at a prestigious Chicago consulting firm for 3 years when Rebecca joined as the new department head. Initially, Marcus felt optimistic about the change. Rebecca came with impressive credentials and spoke confidently about creating a people-first work environment. However, within weeks of her arrival, it became clear that her words bore no resemblance to her actions. When Marcus's father was hospitalized with a heart attack, he approached Rebecca to request emergency leave. Instead of showing concern or understanding, Rebecca's immediate response was, "Well, how long will this take? We have the Morrison presentation next week." When Marcus explained the severity of his father's condition, she sighed audibly and said, "Look, I get that family stuff is important, but we all have personal problems. The work still needs to get done." Her tone suggested she viewed his family crisis as nothing more than an inconvenient scheduling conflict. This callous response exemplifies what the Stoics recognized as a fundamental corruption of human nature. Marcus Aurelius, writing in his Meditations, emphasized that we were born to work together like feet, hands, and eyes, like the two rows of teeth, upper and lower. The emperor understood that our interconnectedness isn't just a philosophical concept. It's a practical reality that requires us to recognize and respond to each other's struggles and joys. The absence of empathy manifests in countless ways throughout our daily interactions. In Rebecca's case, her lack of emotional connection extended far beyond crisis situations. When team members shared personal achievements, engagements, new homes, children's accomplishments, her responses were perfunctory at best. She might offer a brief congratulations before immediately shifting the conversation back to work matters. More troubling still, she seemed to take a perverse satisfaction in others' setbacks, often responding to news of colleagues' difficulties with barely concealed smugness. Seneca, in his letters to Lucilius, wrote extensively about the virtue of compassion, stating, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end, but also every person's joy should be shared, and every person's sorrow should be lightened by community." He understood that our capacity for empathy directly correlates with our moral development. Those who cannot feel for others have stunted their own growth as human beings. The workplace provides a particularly revealing environment for observing empathy deficits. Rebecca consistently pushed her team beyond reasonable limits, demanding weekend work and late-night revisions without regard for their personal lives or well-being. When employees showed signs of burnout or stress, she interpreted these as character weaknesses rather than natural human responses to excessive pressure. Her favorite phrase became, "If you can't handle the heat, maybe this isn't the right job for you," delivered with a cold smile that suggested she enjoyed watching others struggle. Epictetus, who experienced firsthand the cruelty of those lacking empathy during his years as a slave, taught that no one can hurt you without your permission. However, he also recognized that protecting ourselves from empathy-deficient individuals requires understanding their fundamental nature. These people don't simply choose to be cruel in moments of anger or stress. They genuinely cannot access the emotional states that would make cruelty feel wrong to them. The absence of empathy becomes particularly dangerous in personal relationships. Consider how someone like Rebecca might behave as a romantic partner or family member. When their loved ones face difficulties, they offer criticism instead of comfort. When others succeed, they find ways to diminish those achievements or make themselves the center of attention. They seem incapable of celebrating others' happiness or providing genuine support during times of need. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "Whenever you want to cheer yourself, consider the good qualities of your companions." This practice becomes nearly impossible when dealing with empathy-deficient individuals because they consistently demonstrate the opposite of good qualities. They show indifference to suffering, jealousy toward success, and a remarkable ability to make every situation about themselves. The Stoic response to such individuals involves maintaining our own capacity for empathy while protecting ourselves from their emotional toxicity. As Seneca advised, associate with those who will make a better man of you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve. This doesn't mean we should mirror their callousness, but rather that we should limit our emotional investment in relationships that consistently drain us without offering reciprocal care or understanding. Recognizing empathy deficits requires paying attention to patterns rather than isolated incidents. Everyone has moments of self-absorption or insensitivity, especially during stressful periods. However, empathy-deficient individuals show consistent patterns of emotional disconnection across various situations and relationships. They struggle to offer comfort during others' difficulties, fail to celebrate others' successes genuinely, and seem genuinely puzzled by emotional responses they consider excessive or dramatic. The practical implications of this recognition are profound. In professional settings, it means understanding that appeals to fairness, compassion, or team welfare will likely fall on deaf ears. Instead, you must frame your needs in terms of efficiency, results, or other outcomes they value. In personal relationships, it means accepting that you cannot expect emotional support or understanding from these individuals, regardless of how much you might need or deserve it. Marcus Aurelius taught that the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. When dealing with empathy-deficient people, our greatest strength lies in maintaining our own capacity for compassion while refusing to absorb their emotional coldness. We can acknowledge their limitations without allowing those limitations to diminish our own humanity. The Stoics understood that some people are fundamentally different in their capacity for human connection. By recognizing these differences clearly and responding with wisdom rather than wishful thinking, we protect both our own well-being and our ability to offer genuine empathy to those who can reciprocate it. This discernment isn't cynicism. It's practical wisdom that allows us to invest our emotional energy where it can flourish and bear fruit. 3. The web of deception, identifying manipulation tactics. The third devastating sign of a harmful person is their masterful use of manipulation. The art of twisting reality, emotions, and circumstances to serve their own agenda while leaving their victims confused, powerless, and questioning their own perceptions. Unlike honest disagreement or even selfish behavior, manipulation represents a calculated assault on another person's ability to think clearly and make autonomous decisions. Jennifer thought she had found her soulmate when she met Alex at a Los Angeles fitness class. He was attentive, romantic, and seemed to understand her in ways no previous partner had. 6 months into their relationship, however, Jennifer began experiencing a troubling phenomenon. Conversations that she remembered clearly were being disputed by Alex, who insisted events had unfolded completely differently. When she mentioned feeling hurt by his criticism of her career ambitions, he responded with genuine seeming confusion. "I never said that. You're always so sensitive about work stuff. Maybe you misunderstood what I meant." Initially, Jennifer dismissed these incidents as simple miscommunications. But as they became more frequent, she found herself constantly second-guessing her own memory and perceptions. Alex had begun what psychologists call gaslighting, a manipulation tactic that makes victims doubt their own reality. This insidious form of psychological manipulation takes its name from the 1944 film Gaslight, where a husband systematically manipulates his wife into believing she's losing her sanity. The Stoics, particularly Epictetus, understood manipulation as one of the gravest threats to human freedom and dignity. Having experienced firsthand the powerlessness of slavery, Epictetus taught that no one can hurt you without your permission. However, he also recognized that manipulators work to erode their victims' ability to withhold that permission by clouding their judgment and undermining their confidence in their own perceptions. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. While this wisdom encourages intellectual humility, manipulators exploit this natural uncertainty by making their victims question even their most basic perceptions and experiences. They understand that once someone begins doubting their own memory and judgment, they become increasingly dependent on the manipulator's version of reality. Alex's manipulation of Jennifer extended far beyond gaslighting. He employed what Seneca would have recognized as emotional blackmail, using guilt, fear, and obligation to control another person's behavior. When Jennifer wanted to spend time with her friends, Alex didn't forbid it directly. Instead, he would become withdrawn and melancholy, saying things like, "I guess I just thought we'd want to spend our free time together, but if your friends are more important." This approach was particularly insidious because it made Jennifer feel like the selfish one for wanting to maintain her other relationships. The manipulation escalated when Jennifer received a promotion at her marketing firm. Instead of celebrating her success, Alex began subtly undermining her confidence. He'd make comments like, "I hope this new responsibility won't change you," or "Just remember what's really important in life. It's not all about career success." When Jennifer felt hurt by these remarks, Alex would employ another classic manipulation tactic, playing the victim. "I can't believe you think I don't support you," he'd say with wounded eyes. "I'm just trying to look out for your happiness, and this is how you react?" Epictetus taught his students to distinguish between what is up to us and what is not up to us. Our thoughts, judgments, and responses are up to us, while other people's actions and opinions are not. Manipulators deliberately blur this crucial distinction, making their victims feel responsible for the manipulator's emotions and reactions. They create a psychological environment where the victim constantly tries to manage the manipulator's feelings, losing sight of their own needs and boundaries in the process. Financial manipulation represents another common tactic employed by harmful individuals. Alex gradually began involving himself in Jennifer's financial decisions, initially under the guise of being helpful. He offered to help her budget, suggested she didn't need to spend money on certain things, and eventually convinced her to give him access to her accounts for convenience. This financial entanglement served multiple purposes. It made Jennifer more dependent on Alex, gave him another means of control, and created practical barriers to leaving the relationship. Seneca, writing about the importance of self-sufficiency, observed, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more who is poor." Manipulators understand this principle in reverse. They know that creating artificial scarcity or dependency makes their victims feel poor in resources, options, and alternatives. By controlling finances, social connections, or other practical aspects of life, they make their victims feel trapped and powerless. The isolation tactic represents perhaps the most dangerous form of manipulation. Alex systematically worked to distance Jennifer from her support network, not through direct prohibitions but through subtle sabotage. He'd pick fights before social events, making Jennifer too upset to attend. He'd make disparaging comments about her friends and family, planting seeds of doubt about their motives and loyalty. He'd schedule romantic gestures or important conversations during times when Jennifer had planned to see others, forcing her to choose between him and her relationships. Marcus Aurelius understood the importance of community and mutual support, writing, "We were born to work together like feet, hands, and eyes, like the two rows of teeth, upper and lower. Manipulators recognize this truth and exploit it by systematically dismantling their victims' support systems, leaving them increasingly isolated and dependent. Recognizing manipulation requires developing what the Stoics called prosoche, sustained attention to what is actually happening rather than what we're being told is happening. This means trusting your instincts when something feels wrong, even if you can't immediately articulate why. It means paying attention to patterns of behavior rather than isolated incidents or explanations. The Stoic response to manipulation involves reclaiming your own perceptions and judgments. As Epictetus taught, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. When someone consistently makes you question your own memory, emotions, or judgment, that itself is valuable information about their character and intentions. Protecting yourself from manipulation requires setting firm boundaries and refusing to accept responsibility for another person's emotional reactions. It means maintaining your own support networks and financial independence, regardless of how much someone claims to want to help or take care of these aspects of your life. 4. The prison of control, breaking free from domination. The fourth unmistakable sign of a truly harmful person is their relentless need to control every aspect of your life, decisions, and autonomy. This goes far beyond having preferences or strong opinions. Controlling individuals seek to dominate others completely, stripping away their freedom to make independent choices while disguising this domination as care, concern, or superior knowledge. Michael had always prided himself on his independence, but 6 months into working for TechFlow, a Seattle-based software company, he found himself questioning his own judgment about everything. His manager, Patricia, had initially seemed like a mentor figure, experienced, confident, and eager to help him succeed in his new role as a product developer. However, what began as guidance gradually transformed into something far more sinister, complete micromanagement that extended well beyond professional boundaries. Patricia's control began subtly with work-related decisions. She insisted on approving every email Michael sent to clients, reviewing his code line by line, and requiring him to check in with her before making any decisions, no matter how minor. "I just want to make sure you're successful," she would say with a smile that never quite reached her eyes. "Trust me, I know what works best in this industry." When Michael suggested alternative approaches based on his previous experience, Patricia would dismiss them with phrases like, "That might have worked at your old company, but we do things differently here." The Stoics, particularly Epictetus, understood control as the antithesis of human flourishing. Having experienced the ultimate loss of control as a slave, Epictetus developed a philosophy centered on the fundamental distinction between what is up to us and what is not up to us. He taught that our thoughts, judgments, desires, and actions are within our control, while external events and other people's behavior are not. Controlling individuals violate this natural order by attempting to usurp control over aspects of life that rightfully belong to others. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. Controlling people understand this principle and work systematically to erode their victims' sense of personal power, making them believe they're incapable of making good decisions independently. Patricia's control gradually expanded beyond Michael's professional responsibilities. She began monitoring his lunch breaks, questioning why he chose certain restaurants or spent time with particular colleagues. She implemented a policy requiring him to notify her of any after-work activities that might affect his performance and focus the next day. When Michael mentioned planning a weekend hiking trip, Patricia expressed concern about the risks and suggested he consider more relaxing activities instead. The insidious nature of such control lies in how it's presented. Patricia never explicitly forbade Michael from making his own choices. Instead, she created an environment where independent decision-making felt dangerous, irresponsible, or selfish. She would say things like, "Of course, it's your choice, but I've seen what happens when people don't listen to experience," or "I'm only thinking about what's best for your career here." Seneca, writing about the nature of freedom, observed, "Every slave has hope of freedom, but freedom itself can become a form of slavery when we surrender our will to others." This paradox perfectly describes the situation of those under the control of dominating individuals. They may appear free to outside observers, but their ability to exercise genuine choice has been systematically undermined. The controlling person's tactics often include financial manipulation as a means of ensuring dependence. In Michael's case, Patricia began involving herself in his financial decisions under the guise of professional development. She suggested he didn't need to maintain his expensive apartment since he was spending so much time at the office, recommended against certain purchases as financially irresponsible, and even offered to help him manage his budget to optimize his financial future. This financial intrusion serves multiple purposes for the controlling individual. It creates practical barriers to independence, makes the victim feel incompetent to manage their own affairs, and provides another avenue for exercising control. As Epictetus taught, wealth consists in not having great possessions, but in having few wants. Controlling people reverse this wisdom, creating artificial wants and dependencies that serve their need for dominance. Social isolation represents another key tactic in the controller's arsenal. Patricia began subtly discouraging Michael's relationships with coworkers, suggesting that certain colleagues were not serious about their careers or might be bad influences on his professional development. She scheduled mandatory meetings during times when Michael had planned to socialize with friends, created urgent projects that required weekend work, and gradually made it clear that maintaining outside relationships was somehow incompatible with professional success. Marcus Aurelius understood the importance of community and mutual support, writing, "We were born to work together like feet, hands, and eyes, like the two rows of teeth, upper and lower." Controlling individuals recognize the power of community and work systematically to dismantle their victims' support networks, understanding that isolated individuals are far easier to dominate than those with strong social connections. The most dangerous aspect of controlling behavior is how it escalates over time. What begins as helpful guidance gradually becomes invasive oversight, then transforms into complete domination. Patricia eventually began monitoring Michael's computer usage, requiring him to account for every minute of his workday and even suggesting that his personal relationships were affecting his commitment to the company. When Michael finally began to resist these intrusions, Patricia employed threats and intimidation. She suggested his job might be at risk if he couldn't demonstrate proper team alignment, hinted that his reputation in the industry could suffer if he left the company under adverse circumstances, and made it clear that she had the power to make his professional life very difficult. Epictetus taught that no one can harm you without your permission, but he also recognized that controlling individuals work to make it seem as though we have no choice but to grant that permission. They create environments where resistance feels impossible or too costly to contemplate. The Stoic response to controlling behavior involves reclaiming your fundamental right to self-determination. This means recognizing that another person's need to control you is about their character deficiencies, not your inadequacies. It requires setting firm boundaries about what decisions are yours to make and refusing to accept responsibility for managing another person's anxiety about your independence. As Seneca wisely observed, every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. Breaking free from controlling relationships requires ending your participation in the dynamic that enables such control even when doing so feels frightening or uncertain. 5. The corruption of truth, exposing pathological deception. The fifth and perhaps most insidious sign of a truly harmful person is their complete disregard for truth itself. These individuals don't simply lie occasionally to avoid consequences or spare feelings. They engage in pathological deception, fabricating reality constantly and without apparent reason. Their relationship with truth is so fundamentally corrupted that they create elaborate fictional narratives about themselves, their experiences, and their circumstances, often believing their own lies in the process. David Chin thought he knew his brother-in-law Robert well after 5 years of family gatherings in Boston. Robert was always the life of the party, regaling everyone with fascinating stories about his business ventures, travel adventures, and impressive accomplishments. He claimed to have started 3 successful companies, traveled to over 40 countries, and maintained friendships with various celebrities and influential figures. These stories were told with such vivid detail and genuine enthusiasm that no one in the family questioned their authenticity. The truth began unraveling when David's wife decided to surprise Robert with tickets to a charity gala where one of his supposed celebrity friends was being honored. When Robert learned about the surprise, he became visibly uncomfortable and began making excuses about why he couldn't attend. His explanations were elaborate and seemingly plausible, but they contained inconsistencies that David began to notice. This incident prompted David to pay closer attention to Robert's stories, and what he discovered was deeply disturbing. Marcus Aurelius, writing in his Meditations, emphasized the fundamental importance of truth. If you seek tranquility, do less. Or more accurately, do what's essential. Which brings a double satisfaction: to do less better. Because most of what we say and do is not essential. If you can eliminate it, you'll have more time and more tranquility. But you must ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? Because most of what we say and do is not essential. The pathological liar violates this principle completely, adding unnecessary complexity and falsehood to every interaction. Robert's deception extended far beyond impressive anecdotes. David discovered that Robert had been lying about basic facts of his life for years. The 3 successful companies existed only in his imagination. His extensive travel stories were fabricated from internet research and travel documentaries. Even his educational background was largely fictional. He had attended community college for 2 semesters, not graduated from Harvard Business School as he claimed. The Stoics understood that truth serves as the foundation for all virtue and meaningful relationships. Seneca, writing to his friend Lucilius, observed, "Truth will never be tedious unto him that travels through the nature of things. It is falsehood that gluts the mind." Pathological liars reverse this natural order, finding truth tedious and falsehood endlessly fascinating. They seem to derive genuine pleasure from creating and maintaining elaborate deceptions. What makes pathological lying particularly dangerous is how convincing these individuals can be. Robert told his lies with remarkable consistency and detail, often incorporating elements of truth that made his fabrications seem more credible. He would reference real places he had researched, mention actual people he had encountered briefly, and weave these fragments of reality into compelling but fundamentally false narratives. Epictetus, who valued clarity of thought above all else, taught that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. Pathological liars invert this wisdom, speaking constantly while listening only for opportunities to insert more deceptions into conversations. They seem incapable of genuine dialogue because every interaction becomes an opportunity to maintain or expand their fictional self-presentation. The workplace provides another arena where pathological lying can cause tremendous damage. Consider Robert's professional behavior. He consistently took credit for others' work, exaggerated his contributions to projects, and fabricated qualifications and experiences on his resume. When confronted with evidence of his deceptions, he would create even more elaborate lies to explain away the inconsistencies, often blaming others for misunderstanding or misremembering events. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily how much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself. However, when dealing with pathological liars, this wisdom must be balanced with vigilant observation because their deceptions can directly impact our own lives and well-being. The most troubling aspect of Robert's behavior was how his lies affected family relationships. He would fabricate stories about other family members, creating conflicts and misunderstandings based on complete falsehoods. He told David's wife that David had made disparaging comments about her career, then told David that his wife had questioned his commitment to the family. These lies served no apparent purpose other than to create drama and maintain Robert's position as the central figure in family dynamics. Seneca understood the corrosive effect of deception on relationships, writing, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." With pathological liars, every conversation potentially marks the end of trust and the beginning of doubt. Once you recognize the pattern of constant deception, it becomes impossible to believe anything they say, even when they might occasionally be telling the truth. The pathological liar's relationship with reality becomes so distorted that they often seem to believe their own fabrications. Robert would become genuinely indignant when questioned about inconsistencies in his stories, as if the questioner was being unreasonable or hostile. This psychological phenomenon makes it particularly difficult to confront pathological liars because they react to challenges with the same emotional intensity as someone defending legitimate truths. Epictetus taught that no one can harm you without your permission, but pathological liars work to obtain that permission through deception. They harm others by creating false realities that influence important decisions, damage relationships, and undermine trust in human communication itself. The Stoic response to pathological lying involves maintaining your own commitment to truth while protecting yourself from the chaos that constant deception creates. This means documenting important conversations, verifying claims when possible, and refusing to make significant decisions based solely on information provided by someone with a pattern of deception. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be like the rocky headland on which the waves constantly break. It stands firm, and round it the seething waters are laid to rest." When dealing with pathological liars, be like that headland, remain steady in your commitment to truth and reality, unmoved by the turbulent waves of deception that crash around you. The ultimate protection against pathological liars lies in cultivating your own relationship with truth and surrounding yourself with people who share that commitment. As Seneca wisely observed, associate with those who will make a better man of you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve. Pathological liars can neither be improved nor improve others. They can only create confusion and chaos in the lives they touch. 6. The Fortress of Boundaries: Stoic Strategies for Self-Protection. After recognizing these 5 danger signs, the crucial question becomes, how do you protect yourself while maintaining your integrity and peace of mind? The answer lies in one of the most powerful tools the Stoics developed: the art of setting and maintaining firm boundaries. Boundaries aren't walls built from anger or resentment. They're principled stands that protect your well-being while honoring your commitment to virtue and wisdom. Lisa Martinez had reached her breaking point with her colleague James at their Phoenix marketing firm. For months, she had endured his manipulative behavior, controlling demands, and pathological lying, hoping that patience and understanding would somehow improve the situation. James would regularly dump his unfinished projects on her desk minutes before deadlines, claiming urgent family emergencies that later proved to be fabricated. He would take credit for her ideas in meetings, then gaslight her when she tried to address the issue privately. The final straw came when James told their supervisor that Lisa had agreed to work over the weekend on his project, a conversation that had never occurred. The Stoics understood that tolerance of harmful behavior isn't virtue. It's a failure to protect the conditions necessary for virtuous living. As Epictetus taught, no one can harm you without your permission. Setting boundaries is fundamentally about withdrawing that permission and reclaiming control over your own life and well-being. Lisa's transformation began with a simple but profound realization. She had been confusing kindness with enabling. True kindness sometimes requires saying no, setting limits, and refusing to participate in dynamics that harm both parties. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "Be like the rocky headland on which the waves constantly break. It stands firm, and round it the seething waters are laid to rest." Boundaries allow us to be that headland, steady, unmovable, and ultimately peaceful despite the chaos around us. The first step in effective boundary setting is absolute clarity about what you will and will not accept. Lisa scheduled a private meeting with James and delivered a clear, calm message. "James, I need to clarify my professional boundaries. I will not accept responsibility for projects that aren't assigned to me directly by our supervisor. I will not work on weekends unless I've agreed to do so in advance and in writing. If you take credit for my work or ideas in meetings, I will immediately correct the record publicly. These aren't negotiable points. They're simply how I operate professionally." Seneca, writing about the importance of clear communication, observed, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." Lisa's clear boundary statement marked the end of her participation in James's manipulative games and the beginning of a healthier professional dynamic. The key was her specificity. She didn't make vague requests for better treatment, but outlined exact behaviors she would no longer tolerate. The second crucial element of boundary setting is consistency. Boundaries mean nothing if they're not enforced every single time they're tested. When James attempted to dump another last-minute project on Lisa's desk the following week, she calmly reminded him of their previous conversation and physically returned the materials to his workspace. When he became angry and accused her of being uncooperative, she maintained her composure and simply repeated her boundary. As I mentioned last week, I don't accept responsibility for projects not assigned to me directly by our supervisor. Epictetus emphasized the importance of discipline and self-control, teaching that wealth consists in not having great possessions, but in having few wants. This principle applies perfectly to boundary setting. Our strength lies not in controlling others' behavior, but in maintaining unwavering control over our own responses and choices. The third element involves preparing for pushback and resistance. Controlling and manipulative individuals rarely accept boundaries gracefully. They may escalate their behavior, attempt guilt-tripping, or try to punish you for asserting your limits. James responded to Lisa's boundaries by spreading rumors about her being difficult to work with and attempting to exclude her from important meetings. However, Lisa had anticipated this reaction and prepared accordingly. Marcus Aurelius taught that you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this. and you will find strength. Lisa focused on what she could control: her own professional performance, her documentation of interactions with James, and her communication with supervisors about project responsibilities. She couldn't control James's reactions, but she could control her response to those reactions. The fourth crucial aspect of boundary setting involves building and maintaining your support network. Toxic individuals often work to isolate their targets, making boundary setting feel impossible or dangerous. Lisa proactively strengthened her relationships with other colleagues, her supervisor, and her professional network outside the company. She also sought guidance from a mentor who had successfully navigated similar workplace challenges. Seneca understood the importance of wise counsel, writing, "Associate with those who will make a better man of you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve." By surrounding herself with supportive, ethical colleagues, Lisa created an environment where her boundaries were respected and reinforced rather than undermined. The fifth element involves self-care and emotional regulation during the boundary setting process. Dealing with toxic individuals is emotionally draining, and maintaining boundaries requires significant mental and emotional energy. Lisa implemented daily practices inspired by Stoic philosophy: morning reflection on her values and priorities, evening review of her actions and responses, and regular exercise to maintain physical and mental resilience. Marcus Aurelius practiced a form of evening reflection, asking himself, "What wound did anger or distraction or fear inflict on me today? What did I do that was worthy of my principles?" Lisa adapted this practice, focusing on whether she had maintained her boundaries consistently and responded to challenges with wisdom rather than emotion. The sixth crucial element is knowing when boundaries aren't enough. Sometimes, despite our best efforts, the toxic behavior continues or escalates to the point where the relationship itself becomes untenable. In Lisa's case, after 3 months of consistent boundary enforcement, James's behavior had actually worsened. He began sabotaging her work directly and making veiled threats about her job security. Epictetus taught that some things are within our power, while others are not. Lisa realized that changing James's character was not within her power, but changing her own circumstances was. She began documenting his behavior systematically, built a strong case with HR, and ultimately requested a transfer to a different department. When that wasn't immediately possible, she began looking for opportunities at other companies. The Stoics understood that sometimes the most virtuous action is walking away from situations that compromise our ability to live according to our principles. As Seneca wrote, "Every slave has hope of freedom." Lisa's freedom came through recognizing that she didn't have to remain in a toxic professional environment indefinitely. As we reach the end of our exploration into recognizing and protecting ourselves from harmful individuals, it's important to remember that this knowledge isn't meant to make us cynical or suspicious of everyone we meet. Instead, it's designed to empower us with the wisdom our ancestors developed through centuries of human experience and philosophical reflection. The 5 signs we've examined: superficial charm, lack of empathy, manipulation tactics, controlling behavior, and pathological lying, represent fundamental corruptions of human virtue that the Stoics understood as threats to our peace and flourishing. By learning to recognize these patterns, we protect not only ourselves but also our ability to form genuine, meaningful relationships with people who share our commitment to truth, integrity, and mutual respect. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that the best revenge is not to be like your enemy, When we encounter individuals who exhibit these harmful traits, our greatest victory lies in maintaining our own character while refusing to absorb their toxicity. This doesn't mean becoming passive or accepting abuse. It means responding with wisdom, setting firm boundaries, and protecting our inner tranquility through principled action. The Stoic approach to dealing with difficult people isn't about changing them. That's beyond our control. Instead, it's about changing how we respond to them, what we accept from them, and how we protect our own well-being in their presence. As Epictetus taught, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Remember that recognizing these warning signs is just the beginning. The real work lies in consistently applying Stoic principles to protect yourself while maintaining your commitment to virtue. This means setting clear boundaries and enforcing them consistently. It means trusting your instincts when something feels wrong, even if you can't immediately articulate why. It means choosing your associations wisely and not feeling guilty about distancing yourself from people who consistently harm your peace of mind. Seneca's wisdom about choosing our companions becomes especially relevant here. Associate with those who will make a better man of you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve. Life is too short and too precious to spend it managing the chaos created by individuals who lack basic human virtues like honesty, empathy, and respect for others' autonomy. The path forward requires both vigilance and hope. Vigilance to recognize harmful patterns before they cause significant damage to our lives and relationships. Hope that by applying these principles, we can create space for authentic connections with people who share our values and commitment to mutual flourishing. As you move forward in your relationships, whether professional, personal, or familial, carry these insights with you. Trust the wisdom of the Stoics who understood that protecting our inner peace isn't selfish. It's essential for living a virtuous life and being of genuine service to others. If this exploration has provided value to your life, I encourage you to share it with others who might benefit from these insights. Subscribe to Stoic Vivu for more practical wisdom from ancient philosophy applied to modern challenges. Like this content if it resonated with you, and remember that your engagement helps us reach others who are seeking the same wisdom and strength. Stay strong, stay wise, and keep living your truth. The Stoics understood that a life guided by virtue and wisdom is the greatest achievement possible, and it's entirely within your power to create.